The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes 1892, Episode 10, The Noble Bachelor. Welcome back, Detective. After witnessing the industrial horrors that cost Victor Hatherley his thumb, you might think you've seen how modern criminality exploits technological progress. But today's case will take us into the rarefied world of Victorian high society, where ancient titles collide with New World fortunes, and where love itself becomes a weapon of deception. Have you ever wondered what could make a bride vanish without a trace on her wedding day, leaving behind only questions and a room full of shocked aristocrats? Prepare yourself for one of Holmes's most delicate social investigations, where the mystery lies not in what was stolen, but in what was never really there to begin with. Picture yourself on a crisp October afternoon in 1886, when the autumn leaves drift past the windows of 2I21B Baker Street and London society buzzes with scandalous gossip about the most sensational wedding disaster of the season. You arrive to find Holmes surrounded by newspapers, each headline more dramatic than the last. American heiress vanishes on wedding day, and Lord St. Simon's bride disappears mysteriously. Ah, perfect timing, Holmes exclaims as you enter with Watson. We have been engaged by one of England's most distinguished noblemen to solve what the press is calling the mystery of the century. Lord Robert St. Simon's bride has vanished completely, leaving behind a wedding breakfast, a room full of witnesses, and absolutely no explanation for her disappearance. Before you can fully absorb this information, the sound of an approaching carriage announces the arrival of your client. Up the stairs strides a man who embodies everything aristocratic Victorian England represents, Lord Robert St. Simon, heir to one of the oldest dukedoms in Britain, his bearing so regal that he seems to carry centuries of noble breeding in his very posture. Mr. Holmes, Lord St. Simon begins without preamble, his voice crisp with authority and barely controlled anger. I have engaged your services because Scotland Yard appears incapable of understanding the gravity of this situation. My wife, Lady St. Simon, formerly Miss Hatty Doran of San Francisco, has disappeared under circumstances that threaten to destroy both my reputation and my family's honor. Think about this carefully, Detective. What kind of social pressures would drive a member of the aristocracy to seek private help rather than rely on official police investigation? What aspects of this case might be too sensitive for public scrutiny? Holmes settles back in his chair with the air of a man preparing to unravel a particularly complex puzzle. Lord St. Simon, please describe the events of your wedding day in complete detail. Begin with the ceremony itself, and continue through to the moment you realized your bride was missing. The wedding took place yesterday morning at St. George's, Hanover Square, Lord St. Simon recounts, his aristocratic composure barely concealing deep embarrassment. Everything proceeded normally through the ceremony itself. Hattie seemed somewhat nervous, but I attributed that to natural bridal anxiety. She looked radiant in her wedding dress, a creation that cost more than most people earn in a year. The first unusual incident occurred during the signing of the register, he continues, his brow furrowing with recalled confusion. A man in the crowd, clearly American by his dress and manner, attempted to approach my bride. She appeared to recognize him and seemed quite startled by his presence. My best man quickly removed the intruder, but I noticed Hattie seemed deeply shaken by the encounter. Holmes interrupts with sharp interest. Did your bride explain who this American gentleman was? Did she seem frightened by his presence or merely surprised? The distinction could be crucial to understanding what happened next. She claimed not to know him, Lord St. Simon replies, though his tone suggests he harbored doubts about this explanation. She said he must have mistaken her for someone else. But I observed that she avoided looking in his direction for the remainder of the ceremony, and her hands trembled noticeably during the final vows. The wedding breakfast at Lord St. Simon's family estate provides the setting for the mysterious disappearance. We returned to Aldershot for the wedding celebration. About 40 guests were present, the cream of London society, including several cabinet ministers and foreign dignitaries. The meal proceeded normally until dessert was served. That's when Hattie complained of a sudden headache. Lord St. Simon continues, his voice growing more strained. She excused herself from the table, saying she needed to rest briefly in her room. I offered to accompany her, but she insisted on going alone. That was the last time anyone saw her. Here's where the mystery becomes truly baffling. When she failed to return after an hour, I sent her maid to check on her. The room was empty, but all her personal belongings remained untouched. Her wedding dress lay neatly folded on the bed, as if she had deliberately changed into traveling clothes. But no one saw her leave the house. Holmes's next question reveals his understanding of the social complexities involved. Lord St. Simon, had your bride seemed entirely content with the marriage arrangement? Was this a love match, or were there other considerations involved in your union? The aristocrat's hesitation speaks volumes about the nature of their relationship. The marriage was mutually beneficial. Hatty brought considerable wealth to our family, while I provided her with ancient lineage and social position. Such arrangements are common in our circle and generally prove quite satisfactory for both parties involved. Think about what this reveals, detective. How might a young American woman feel about being essentially purchased for her fortune by a titled husband who values her money more than her person? What emotions might drive someone to flee such a union? Watson raises the practical question that troubles everyone. But how did she leave the house without being observed? Surely at a gathering of 40 people, someone would have noticed a bride in traveling clothes departing the premises. Lord St. Simon's answer only deepens the mystery. That's precisely what makes this disappearance so inexplicable, he replies with growing frustration. The house was full of guests and servants. Every exit was visible from multiple rooms. Yet somehow Hatty managed to change clothes, pack a bag, and leave the estate without a single person witnessing her departure. Holmes's investigation begins with a careful examination of the bride's abandoned room. Show me exactly what she left behind, Lord St. Simon. Sometimes what people choose to take reveals more about their intentions than what they leave. The inventory proves illuminating. All her jewelry remained, including a diamond necklace worth several £1,000s, Lord St. Simon reports. Her toiletries, personal letters, even her purse containing considerable cash, everything was left untouched. She took only the clothes on her back and disappeared like morning mist. But Holmes discovers one crucial detail that everyone else overlooked. Lord St. Simon, you mentioned that your bride's wedding dress was folded neatly on the bed. Did you observe any other clothing missing from her wardrobe? This question leads to the first real breakthrough in the case. Now that you mention it, Lord St. Simon admits reluctantly, her maid reported that a simple blue traveling dress was missing, along with a warm cloak and practical walking shoes. It suggests she planned her departure carefully and dressed for a journey rather than a brief walk in the garden. Holmes's examination of the wedding breakfast reveals additional clues. The guest list included several Americans, I presume? Business associates of your bride's family? When Lord St. Simon confirms this, Holmes presses further. Did any of these American guests leave the celebration unusually early? Actually, yes, Lord St. Simon recalls with surprise. Mr. Francis Hay Moulton, who claimed to be an old family friend from San Francisco, departed quite suddenly during the main course. He made some excuse about urgent business, but his manner seemed agitated rather than professional. Think carefully about this timing, detective. What connection might exist between the mysterious American who disrupted the wedding ceremony and another American who left the reception just before the bride's disappearance? Holmes's next move demonstrates his understanding of human nature. Lord St. Simon, I need you to describe your bride's behavior throughout your engagement. Did she seem genuinely happy about the approaching marriage, or were there signs of reluctance that you might have overlooked? The aristocrat's answer reveals the fundamental problem with their union. Hatty was always reserved about displays of affection. I assumed this was proper American restraint, different from our English customs. She seemed interested in learning about our family history and traditions, but I realize now that she never spoke about her own feelings or future hopes. Most troubling in retrospect, Lord St. Simon continues with growing unease. She frequently asked detailed questions about the legal aspects of English marriage, whether American marriages were recognized here, what rights wives possessed, how difficult it would be to dissolve such unions. At the time, I thought she was simply being practical. Holmes exchanges a significant glance with Watson. Lord St. Simon, I believe your bride may have discovered information about English marriage law that fundamentally altered her perception of your union. Tell me, had she ever been married before, either legally or ceremonially? Absolutely not, Lord St. Simon responds with aristocratic outrage. I would never have proposed to a divorced woman. Her father assured me she was completely innocent of any prior romantic attachments. The very suggestion is insulting to both our family's honor. But Holmes's investigation into Hatty Doran's background in San Francisco reveals a very different story. Through his network of American contacts, he discovers that Miss Doran had indeed been married before, to Francis Hay Moulton, the same American who had disrupted her wedding ceremony and left the reception early. The marriage took place 3 years ago in California, Holmes explains to the stunned Lord St. Simon. But Moulton was reported killed in a mining accident shortly after their wedding. Miss Doran believed herself to be a widow when she accepted your proposal. The final pieces of the puzzle fall into place with devastating clarity. Mr. Moulton was not killed in that mining accident, merely injured and missing for several months. When he recovered and returned to civilization, he discovered that his wife had moved to England and was about to remarry. He followed her here, determined to reclaim his legal wife. Holmes's reconstruction of the wedding day events shows how carefully the reunion was planned. Moulton attended your wedding ceremony to reveal himself to his wife, confirming that he was alive and that their marriage was still legally valid. The shock of seeing her presumed dead husband naturally overwhelmed the bride. The American who left your reception early was Moulton himself, Holmes continues, who arranged to meet with his wife privately to discuss their situation. When she realized that her marriage to you was legally invalid due to her existing union, she chose to honor her original vows and leave with her first husband. Lord St. Simon's reaction combines aristocratic rage with profound humiliation. You mean to tell me that I have been made a laughingstock because some American fortune hunter faked his own death to reclaim a wife who preferred his poverty to my title? This is intolerable. But Holmes offers a different perspective on the situation. Lord St. Simon, consider that Miss Doran found herself in an impossible position. She had married for love, mourned a husband she believed dead, and then entered into a practical arrangement with you for financial security. When her first love returned from the grave, she chose emotion over convenience. The case concludes not with criminal charges, but with a quiet annulment and a valuable lesson about the complexities of international marriage customs. Miss Doran and Mr. Moulton have already sailed for America, where their original marriage will be recognized, and they can rebuild their interrupted life together. Holmes's final analysis reveals the cultural clash at the heart of the mystery. This case demonstrates the collision between old-world traditions of arranged marriages for social advancement and new-world ideals of marrying for love. Your bride was caught between two different concepts of what marriage should represent. Moreover, Holmes continues, it shows how the increasing mobility of modern society creates legal complications that our current systems are poorly equipped to handle. A woman can be legally married in America, widowed by false reports, and remarried in England, all without any authority having complete information about her actual status. Years later, Holmes would receive occasional letters from the reunited Moultons, reporting on their happiness in California and expressing gratitude for his discretion in handling such a delicate matter. Lord St. Simon eventually married again, this time to an English heiress whose background could be thoroughly verified. The Noble Bachelor case serves as a reminder that in an age of global commerce and international marriages, the human heart often creates complications that legal documents cannot resolve. Love may conquer all, but it frequently leaves considerable social wreckage in its wake. So tell me, detective, did you suspect that Miss Doran had been previously married before Holmes revealed the truth? What does this complex case teach us about the clash between marriages of convenience and marriages of affection? And how do we balance respect for legal contracts with understanding for genuine human emotions? This sophisticated mystery reminds us that the most challenging cases often involve not criminal intent, but human hearts torn between duty and desire, and that sometimes the greatest kindness lies in allowing people to follow their deepest convictions rather than their legal obligations. Join me next time as we investigate The Adventure of the Beryl Coronet. a case where a banker's trust in his own son leads to accusations of theft, family betrayal, and a mystery involving one of England's most precious royal treasures.